Welcome to the Growth Boss podcast, where we seek out the secrets to high-performing campaigns from some of the smartest marketers in the world. I'm your host, Jared Smith. Today I have Saul Marquez with us, and he's going to teach us how to 10x your business in 3 years by documenting your marketing strategy. Saul is the CEO of Outcomes Rocket, an agency helping healthcare founders and leaders grow their businesses. With 18 years of experience in the healthcare industry, his team handles everything from ads and podcasts to PR and branding, using the latest tools like AI and automation to deliver results. Saul believes in making healthcare better with lower costs, better service, and smarter strategies. Saul, thanks so much for being here today.
Jared, thanks for hosting me. Big fan of your show. I learn a lot from hearing your episodes, and so glad to be on the other side this time.
Appreciate that. So, Saul, I am super excited for this episode. I'm very eager to learn as a business owner how I can 10x my business. So where do you recommend business owners like me start when we're looking to document our marketing strategy?
Yeah, Jared, thanks for the question. And look, I'll start off with a brief story. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I was a corporate guy. And the one thing that I really learned to appreciate in my many jobs as a sales rep, then marketer, then sales executive, and finally running a division is these very large companies, the things that make them successful they're also the things that make them not innovative. Many entrepreneurs are super innovative. We move fast. We like to get things done, and we like to set our own rules.
100%.
And the challenge, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's how it goes. And what happens is the same things that help us move fast and be innovative, we oftentimes lack the structures and the systems and documentation required to produce long-term success. Look, 3 years flies by. And I say 10x in 3 years because it's possible if you do it right. And so to really get to the nitty-gritty of it, the literature shows that only 28% of companies actually have a clearly documented marketing strategy. And the first thing that I'll share with our listeners today, Jared, and yourself, is that the beauty of that is if you do the hard thing and you get with the 28%, then you have a competitive advantage. That's literally a couple months away.
Yeah, 100%. And so tell a listener who's maybe struggling with that. I know for me early in my career, documenting anything was hard. That's just not, I'm just like, hey, we're just going as fast as we can. Forget about documentation. We'll figure that out later. But maybe for my 22-year-old self, why is it important to document it, to slow down a little bit and make sure that that's covered?
Totally. I'll tell you what, I went through a process. I hired an external agency consulting firm to take a look at our business. And one thing that I learned through their process was documentation is like showering. And if you don't do it every day, you're going to stink. Yeah. And the reason it's so important is that if you intend to get beyond a meaningful number, like, you know, if you're going to be like the normal business in the US, most small businesses don't have more than 2 employees. And the reason for that is because they haven't taken the time to document the things that they do, their best practices, so that they could do what is called the rule of 3. So the rule of 3 is essentially you master what you're doing in delivery to a customer, you master what you're doing in running the business, and then you expand. You remove yourself from specific responsibilities, and you train people, your first 3 people, to do those things. When you do that, you're able to move yourself to the next level of the business, maybe create new services, maybe find optimal ways of delivering existing services, expanding the network, deepening penetration in particular geographies. You could move yourself from delivery to strategy and execution. Yeah. So the rule of 3 helps you expand your business. And if you're not documenting, there's no way you're going to be able to train people consistently. And as your team continues to grow, you're going to need that documentation to clearly outline to your team how to execute and how to take care. The other thing is what I share with my team, Jared, because, you know, I have a marketing agency. I tell them, when you go to Starbucks, you get the same coffee. It's most of the time good. They might mess up your name on the cup. That's inconsequential. But in Christmas they'll have the red aprons, and the same with Marriott. The bed is made, it's the same pillow. And the reason for that, and the reason for the consistency, is because of documentation. And then if you take documentation to the next step, it's your standard operating procedures. Your standard operating procedures are the step-by-step process to execute on anything, whether it be an SEO web analysis or the execution plan, right, on the blogs and backlinking strategies that you might have. So it's about outlining it so that you could train and empower and then move on to the next best thing that your business needs to grow.
Absolutely. And here's what I'll say about that. Early on in my career, I mentioned, my younger self really struggled with this. I viewed myself as a firefighter in the business. And I wore that hat with pride. Now I'm disgusted anytime I'm, jumping in fighting fires because, again, just like you said, I'm working in the business. I'm not working on the business. And I struggled with growth for a long time because of that, because I couldn't pull myself out of the business enough to be strategic and figure out what those pathways were to growth. So I love the way you phrase that. So how do we actually get down into the nitty gritty of documenting a marketing strategy? Is this something I just open my Google Doc with? Am I using Loom? How do I actually go about that?
Yeah, you know what? In today's world, Jared, with Gen AI, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. You just need to have a basic framework. And I'm going to give you a basic framework right now. So when you think about marketing, there's only 3 things you could do in marketing. And it's either owned marketing, earned marketing, or paid marketing. And so everything under earned or everything under owned, I'll start with owned, are things that you own, such as your SEO, such as your website, such as a podcast or a webinar hosted on your platform. That's all owned. Earned is the PR and media relations. You're wanting to have other people and other news media outlets tell your story for you. It's podcast opportunities. Like for me, this is an earned opportunity on your own channel. And so, earned that's what it is. And then paid. It's like once you have your systems in process, your conversion optimization in place, you understand the percentage of conversion for traffic that you get, regardless of channel, it's worth putting money behind it and doing ads, whether it be social ads, programmatic ads, or going to conferences where you have high volumes of people showing up, right? That you're going to convert X percent. So those are your 3 pillars of marketing. The pillar that precedes all 3 of them is the strategy pillar, and that's where the documentation happens. And so that's sort of your high-level framework. You got strategy, owned, earned, and paid. Now, if we're going to zoom into the strategy piece, because that's where documentation takes place, your strategy is a couple things. And I'll start off by saying that what we share with clients all the time is that tactics is everything in the other 3 pillars. Those are all tactics. If they're not tied to your strategy and your commercial execution plan for the year, good luck. And so tactics are the noise you hear before the battle is lost.
That's right.
Okay? Yeah, right? Jared, I'm sure you share that with your clients all the time with the SEO work you do. And so inside of the zoom in on strategy, there's a couple elements. And you're going to literally do this. You're going to grab your URL on your website, if you have a website. If you don't, then grab the document that talks about your company. You're going to paste that into ChatGPT. And then you're going to say, ChatGPT, give me my brand house. My brand house has a couple elements. The elements of a brand house are your brand statement, your brand position, which is about your differentiators, and your brand pillars, right? So that's the brand house. And then you're going to say, in addition, I would like for you to also outline my ideal ICPs, ideal client personas. And you got to help it out. So you put, these are my 3 main buyers. And then so let's just say you are we do all healthcare, right? So all of our clients are 100% healthcare. Our clients fall into the health tech, med tech, provider, and pharma spaces. So those are sort of the 4 verticals within healthcare that we serve. So I'll give you an example there. It's a healthcare SaaS company looking to get more demos of their product. Their ideal buyer is a physician practice of 100 or more physicians. So their decision maker within that practice, it could be two people. It could be the medical director, and it could also be the CEO. So in that framework that I was giving you that you should put into ChatGPT, your ICP, ideal client profile, it's create one for a CEO of a 100 plus physician medical practice, and also create an ICP that has the chief medical officer. Make sure to include pain points and the solutions that we offer to solve those pain points, their main goals. And so that is what you put in. You hit enter, and you're going to get this like awesome text. It's not going to be, I would tell you that it's probably about 70% there. So now you grab this, you put it on a Word document, and you start reading through it, and you start tweaking it. The nice thing about this is that now you have a lot of data that you could start structuring to put together the documented approach to hit the market. Then once you crystallize that, those are some of the main things. Then from there, you go to the next step, which is your messaging architecture. What is messaging architecture? Messaging architecture is the simplest form, typically 3 ideas that you want to message to the market. And those 3 ideas tie to your unique selling proposition, which was when we talked about the brand house, Jared. It's the, not your brand statement, but your brand differentiators. That right there, you boil it into those 3 main ideas. So I'm going to keep going with this analogy for you, just to make it very real. So this organization that I'm telling you about has a SaaS platform, and they help track patients better, and they help them move through the process. They don't lose them to another practice because they're staying with them the whole way, the patient journey, right? So they're fast in helping patients find an appointment. They're able to very quickly identify needs that might be missed because they're capturing data throughout the whole process. And they do it in a way that doesn't require a lot of implementation. So those are the 3 things that differentiate them in the market. And then you put your subpoints there. That becomes your messaging architecture that you then, whether it be all of the outputs of marketing, the tactics in the 3 pillars that we talked about, that becomes the lens through which you shine any tactic through. So if I'm going to show up with Jared, on Jared's show, I'm going to talk about one of those 3 messaging pillars. If I get an opportunity to do SEO with you, I'm going to let you know that our unique differentiators that we want to rank for are based off of this. And then we create blogs based off of those keywords. Anyway, so I'll pause there, but that's literally, anybody can do that right now.
Absolutely. And so you're dropping these into ChatGPT, but I think I may have missed the prompt that goes with that. So what are you including with that kind of as the prompt, like, hey, create my messaging, or what is that prompt that you're including with your brand guide, your brand house?
Oh, yeah. So I am seeking to create the marketing strategy and the documented marketing strategy for my company. This documented strategy includes a brand house. It includes ideal client personas, and it includes my messaging architecture.
Okay.
So those 3 things, and then just say, but I want to start with the first one, which is the brand house. And the brand house includes these 3 things. Go. Right? And then you take it one at a time, because if you put all 3 of them in there, it's going to get too jumbled up. But guess what, Jared and everybody with us? Most people are still too busy. Some people don't believe, some people believe this is the soft stuff, and that it really, I got to get to the market.
Right, exactly.
Dude, that's why you're going to fail, man. So 50% of businesses in the United States fail within 5 years. And at 10 years, 97% fail. And the number one reason businesses fail is because of lack of product demand. Dude, lack of product demand.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Document your strategy and do it. It's not soft stuff. And I can tell you that if you do this and then you keep documenting not just your marketing strategy, but Jared, I love that you went straight to documentation on this. You document everything in your business. in 3 years, you will 10x your
Incredible.
business. Yeah.
Incredible. What are some other kind of tidbits that people need to understand when they are creating kind of this brand guide, this brand house? Again, I feel like somebody would be like, hey, if I had that, I would throw it into ChatGPT, figure out my marketing strategy, but I don't even have that yet. What are some other critical components to really making sure that people nail it?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, one of the biggest core components of any strategy is understanding what your end customer's biggest pain points are and how to help them solve it. I got to tell you, man, this idea of let's make money. Like, I'm going to go back to this idea of make money, okay? And I'm going to tie it back. But the idea is let's make money. When you say let's make money, you're sort of like skipping a bunch of steps, because the reality is money is just a means of exchanging value. And what is value? Value is I'm going to give you what you want. You're going to give me what I want. So at the very core opportunity within business is understanding what people want. And if you know their pain point, and one of the biggest ways to get that pain point is go to conferences. So, you know what? A friend of mine's mom, I always admired her because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and she always had this successful business. And I asked her, I said, what have you done to build your business? She's like, I go to the conferences, Saul. And at the conferences, I hear what people are going through, but I also ask them what their biggest needs are. What are your biggest challenges? When people go to conferences, they're looking for solutions. They're looking to make contacts. They're looking to grow their business, but they're looking for ideas to grow. So when you're in that spirit of learning, I just got back from the Vive conference in Nashville, Tennessee. Man, I was asking everybody, what is your biggest marketing challenge right now? And as I was chatting with people, I started seeing trends in what the biggest challenges were today. So that, I came back to my office. We had our core team meeting in the morning. I meet with my team for 30 minutes every single day of the week just to align. And I said, guys, this is what I'm hearing. Top of funnel is a big issue. People are in need of getting more awareness so that they could actually schedule appointments. So what are we doing to drive top of funnel to our clients? We're going to send an email out to our list about ideas to address top of funnel challenges. You're getting people what they want. So focus on the pain point. To your question, the answer is focus on the pain point. You don't need to make it complex. I know I gave you this outline. You would be in a really good spot if you boiled that whole outline away. If you focused on the pain point and your key messaging strategy about how your solution addresses it, you'd be ahead of the other 72%. Yeah.
All right. So the business owner runs through this. They've got their strategy. What do you feel is the next step once they've really identified who they're serving, how they're serving them, the pain points, and everything involved in that?
So then the next step is now you have these 3 pillars of tactics: own, earn, and paid, right? So then you got to decide, based off of who my ideal client persona is, where are they spending time? So you're going to do 2 things. Number 1, it's where are the people you want to reach? And number 2 is what do you enjoy doing the most? Okay? Because dude, we have clients that will literally they just love podcasting, right? They love being in the camera. They love being in the limelight. So boom, right? That's a tactic that gravitates toward what you like to do. We have other clients that are quiet, but they're thoughtful, man. And we're putting together some really creative thought leadership written articles through Forbes Council and also on their blog, right? So those are the 2 questions you have to ask yourself is, where are my clients? So then question number 1, where are my clients? So for this physician, this physician CEO, they're going to association meetings. They are reading academic journals. They are potentially going onto LinkedIn, most likely, because that's where they're spending time. They don't bother with Facebook. Maybe they're on Instagram. So you decide where they're at, what they consume. So then you decide, okay, I personally really like to do podcasts. I'm just doing podcasts because
Yeah.
we're here. And so I will decide to create a podcast that attracts my ideal client, and I'll feed it into LinkedIn because I know that's where they're spending
Yes.
time. And I'm going to go to the conferences that I know that they're
Yep.
at to do my offline networking, and I'll match it with my online efforts. You're going to close
Yeah.
deals. You're going to close deals. And then the chief medical officer, figure out
Yep.
where they're at, where are they, what do they like, and then what do you like, match it. And the reason why the second one, Jared, and everybody with us, is so important is that it's got to be sustainable
Yep.
for you. You got to love what
That's
you're
right.
doing, because if you don't, you're not going to keep up
I
with
love it. You know, I like that for two different reasons. Number one, it brings focus. When, you know, a business owner hears two marketers like us saying, all right, we've got earned, we've got owned, we've got paid. And then underneath each one of those, they throw that into ChatGPT. Which one of these do I want to do? Well, there's 20 under each one of those. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know which one. So it hones them in on exactly what they're going to be great at because they love it. Right. And that's what people don't understand is they do these tactics that they think they should do, but because they don't like it, they're not passionate about, they're not great at it. They're not exceptional at it. And you're only going to be great at something more than likely if you love it. And by loving it, you're great at it. You're going to crush it in those markets. I love that. Just leaning into the strengths of your customers, whether it's writing on LinkedIn, doing a podcast, blogging. I had one, client, all we want to do is blog. Crushed it, right? He knew his audience better than anybody else, and he was able to produce better content that we would have ever been able to do on our side because he knew his customer and he wrote those blogs. So that's fantastic. I love that.
I'm glad, Jared. Yeah, you might run into a situation where you find out that they're on a platform you don't like X, or you know what? In doing a backlink analysis, I'm finding that my client is getting a ton of traffic because their SEO game is tight, and I don't like doing it. That's when you hire Jared. See, when you find an opportunity and it doesn't match, but you find that it is critical to compete, then that's where you work with an agency like Jared's. That's when you work with an agency like ours on the podcast side or whatever to make sure that you're driving results that need to be driven. And back to the rule of three, man. Like the way to get ahead is not what, it's who.
That's right. That's exactly it. And that's a great point. In that analysis strategy phase, looking at your competitors, how are they winning? Okay. If they're generating, in your estimates, 80 to 90% of their revenue through paid media, through SEO, whatever it is, you probably have to be part of that conversation. Doesn't mean you always have to be, but it's probably a good idea to get in there and then lean into your strengths so you've got this balance working, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome. What's next? Is there anything else, kind of a customer, a business owner needs to be aware of, while they're building this out?
Look, I would just say that don't do it in a vacuum. I did mention the conferences. There's just get feedback on your strategy. I'll go back to conferences. Get out there and ask them. The other thing you should do is ask your customers. Gosh, your customers are the biggest resource you have. So if you don't want to go to a conference, ask your customers. Because they're going to tell you what they like, what they don't like. And by the way, the thing that I'll share with you is when you do talk to your customers, listen very intently because they will tell you things that are in between the lines.
That's right.
So they'll be sharing something with you, and it's in between the lines sometimes. So you have to ask clarification questions. Don't be checking your emails. Like if a customer gives you 30 minutes to talk about feedback that you want, be super intent. Like get anything else out of the way and make sure you're listening to them hard. And that's what I would say. So conferences or customers to vet your hypothesis and then get after it. And then obviously analyze, tweak, repeat.
I love it. So when you say in between the lines, here's what I hear on my side because going to different conferences. I'm actually going to a conference next month for that very purpose is not necessarily for any of the sessions, but for the conversations that are happening at the bar after the session is over. That's what
Totally.
I'm going for. And that's where you get those in between the lines, the things that, they may not talk about on stage, but you go grab a couple drinks, with some of the speakers or some of the attendees and, hey, what's going on? Like you
Yeah.
said, what's the biggest challenge you guys are facing? Okay. That's when all the secrets are released, all the inside knowledge is released. And that's exactly why I'm going to the conference, is that type of stuff. So very important strategy. I don't think enough business owners are looking at conferences that way, but it can be a very, very valuable tactic.
It definitely is. It definitely is, man. Hugely powerful for your
Yeah.
business.
Well, Saul, thank you so much for being here today. For somebody looking to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, look, for any businesses out there in healthcare, which is the niche that we focus on, that are doing more than $1 million in annual revenue or that have raised $5 million or more in venture capital, we want to talk to you. Happy to do a 20-minute strategy session to figure out the ways that we could help you grow. There's no commitment there. You could reach me at saul@outcomesrocket.com if you want to take me up on that. I'm good for it. And that's where you could reach me. And if you want to see what we're up to, outcomesrocket.com. We publish all the things that we do out in the media, where we share our best secrets for free, like here with Jared. So that's where I would go, Jared. I really appreciate you hosting me.
Love it. Thank you.